Why loneliness is deadlier than obesity. 3 simple ways to feel less alone. You know, there's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. It's not about aches and pains, or even about diet and exercise, though those are important. No, this is something deeper, something that can quietly sneak into our lives and take a bigger toll than we realize. I'm talking about loneliness. Now, you might be thinking, lonely? Me? I've got my routines, my TV shows, maybe even a pet. And that's great. But here's something that might surprise you. Research shows that chronic loneliness can be even deadlier than obesity. It's linked to higher risks of heart disease, depression, even memory loss. And the tricky thing is, loneliness doesn't always feel like loneliness. Sometimes it just feels like a quiet house, or a day that drags on a little too long. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay stuck in that feeling. In fact, there are simple, practical ways to feel more connected, more engaged, and yes, even more joyful. Today, I want to share 3 of those with you. These aren't complicated fixes or big life overhauls. They're small steps that can make a world of difference. Let's start with the first one. Reach out, even when it feels awkward. I know, this might sound easier said than done. Maybe you've lost touch with old friends over the years, or you worry that people are too busy to talk. But here's the thing. More often than not, the person on the other end is just as happy to hear from you as you are to connect with them. Think about someone you used to enjoy talking to, a neighbor, a cousin, even an old coworker. Maybe it's been months or even years since you last spoke. That's okay. A simple phone call or even a handwritten note can reopen that door. You don't need a big reason to reach out. Just say, I was thinking about you and wanted to say hello. You'd be amazed how many friendships can pick right back up where they left off. Now, the second way to feel less alone is to find your tribe. And yes, you absolutely still have one. This might mean joining a club, attending a local event, or even finding an online group that shares your interests. And before you say, oh, that's not for me, hear me out. There are groups for everything these days. Gardening, book clubs, classic movie lovers, even folks who meet up just to take walks together. You don't have to be the most outgoing person in the room. Just showing up is enough. And if going out feels like too much, start small. Many communities have senior centers with activities designed to be easy and welcoming. Or, if you're tech-savvy, Facebook groups and online forums can be a great way to connect from the comfort of your home. The key is to find people who get you. People who share your sense of humor, your hobbies, or even your life experiences. Now, I'd love to tell you about the third way, but let's pause here for just a moment. Because these first 2 steps, reaching out and finding your tribe, are already powerful tools to start chipping away at loneliness. And the beautiful thing is, they build on each other. One conversation can lead to another. One new connection can open the door to more. So, take a second and think. Who's one person you could reach out to this week? Is there a group or activity you've been curious about but haven't tried yet? Jot it down, even if it's just in your mind. And when you're ready, we'll move on to that third way. A simple but profound shift that can turn loneliness into something entirely different. You know, one of the things I love about talking with folks like you is that we've all lived enough life to know this simple truth. Little things add up. A cup of coffee with a friend, a shared laugh over an old story, even just hearing someone say your name with warmth. These moments might seem small, but they're like sunshine for the soul. And that brings me to the third way to feel less alone. Create moments of connection in your everyday life. Now, this doesn't mean you have to fill every hour of your day with socializing. It's about weaving tiny threads of connection into the rhythm of your normal routine. For example, if you go to the same grocery store every week, make it a point to chat with the cashier or the stocker in the cereal aisle. Ask how their day is going. You'd be surprised how these micro-conversations can make you, in them, feel seen and valued. Or maybe it's about turning a solitary activity into a shared one. Love birdwatching. See if a neighbor wants to join you on your porch with a pair of binoculars. Enjoy cooking? Double a recipe and take a plate to someone who'd appreciate it. These gestures don't just brighten someone else's day. They remind you that you're part of a community, even if it's just your street or your apartment building. Here's another idea. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. One of the most powerful ways to connect is through learning something new. And yes, that's true at any age. Maybe you've always wanted to try painting, or you're curious about Tai Chi, or you'd love to learn a few phrases in Italian for that trip you've been dreaming about. Taking a class, whether in person or online, does two wonderful things. It gives you a reason to show up, and it surrounds you with people who are starting from the same place you are. There's an instant camaraderie in not knowing what you're doing. And if mobility or transportation is an issue, platforms like YouTube or Zoom offer endless free or low-cost options. The goal isn't to become an expert. It's to remind yourself that growth and connection don't have an expiration date. Now, let's talk about something that might feel uncomfortable at first, but can be incredibly healing: letting people help you. Many of us were raised to be independent, to take pride in handling things ourselves. But here's the irony. When we refuse help, we often rob others of the joy of giving it. Think about how good it feels when someone trusts you enough to ask for your advice or company. Why not give that gift to someone else? Maybe it's accepting your daughter's offer to drive you to an appointment instead of insisting on taking the bus. Or saying yes when a neighbor asks if you'd like them to pick up something for you while they're at the store. These small acts of reciprocity build bonds. They say, "We're in this together." And here's something beautiful I've noticed. The more we open ourselves up to these everyday connections, the more the world starts to feel softer, somehow, less lonely. It's like tuning a radio. When you adjust the dial just right, you realize the airwaves were full of voices all along. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but what if I try these things and still feel lonely sometimes? That's okay. Loneliness isn't a flaw. It's a signal, like hunger or thirst, reminding us that we're wired for connection. The goal isn't to never feel lonely again. We all will sometimes. It's to have tools to answer that signal when it arises. So let's keep going. Because there's one more shift, one more way to turn loneliness from something we fear into something we understand. And it starts with looking at an empty room differently. You know, there's a story I've always loved about an older woman who kept a light on in her window every night. When her neighbor finally asked why, she smiled and said, "In case someone needs it." At first glance, you might think that light was for others, but I think it was for her, too. It was her way of remembering that even in the quietest hours, she was part of something bigger. And that brings me to the last, and perhaps most surprising, way to feel less alone. Find meaning in the space around you. Now, I don't just mean rearranging the furniture, though a fresh layout can work wonders. I'm talking about how we relate to solitude itself. Because here's the truth. Being alone and feeling lonely are not the same thing. Some of the most connected people I know are those who've learned to cherish their own company. They've discovered that a quiet morning with a book, or an afternoon tending to plants, or even just sitting with a cup of tea and watching the birds, these moments aren't empty. They're full. Try this. The next time you find yourself alone, ask yourself, if I were my own best friend right now, what would I do? Maybe you'd put on that old jazz record you love. Maybe you'd write a letter to your younger self. Or maybe you'd simply sit and let yourself feel whatever you're feeling, without judgment. When we stop seeing solitude as something to escape and start seeing it as something to inhabit, well, that's when the magic happens. The writer May Sarton put it perfectly. Loneliness is the poverty of self. Solitude is the richness of self. Now, let's bring this all together. We've talked about reaching out, finding your tribe, creating everyday connections, embracing new experiences, letting people help you, and now, making peace with solitude. But here's what I really want you to remember. You are already enough. Every time you smile at a stranger, every time you pick up the phone, every time you choose to see the world with curiosity instead of fear, you're weaving yourself into the fabric of life. And that fabric is stronger than loneliness could ever be. So as we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. In the comments, tell me, what's one small connection you've made recently, whether with someone else or with yourself, that brought you joy? Maybe it was a chat with the mail carrier, or finally trying that watercolor tutorial online. Your stories inspire all of us. And if this video resonated with you, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss our next conversation. Because here's the truth. This isn't just about fighting loneliness. It's about celebrating the incredible, messy, beautiful art of being alive at every age. So from my heart to yours, keep shining your light. However bright, however small, the world needs it. You need it. And remember, you're never truly alone. Until next time, Take care and keep connecting.